We have Nas with King's Disease 2, 15 songs, 51 minutes long. We reviewed a couple of Nas albums on this podcast because he likes to release a lot of damn music. So every once in a while, we get to review one here or there. And it's a decent album, I'd say.
Yeah, we got
We
I mean like
got we
we
got big features though. I'll say that we have um, EPMD 2 with Eminem and EPMD. You have YKTV with Boogie with the Hoodie and YG, everybody's favorite lyric stealer. Nobody with Miss Lauryn Hill, Troy Wilson. We have a lot of different features on this album, and I will say this: the features on here are actually pretty solid. The track with the Boogie with the Hoodie and YG, I thought was actually pretty decent and everything. So some of these features, because sometimes they can detract from the album, or sometimes they can, have a good effect to it. I think Nas right now, because he's been around for so damn long, where some of his albums can get Uncle Rappy, and some of it could be decent because we did do the Lost Tapes 2 last year, maybe, or a year and a half ago, or something like
Yeah,
that.
I was just about to say in the intro that like we've talked about Nasir, which was like part of Kanye West's summer of 2018. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about the Lost Tapes too. When I think we reviewed that, we had a little like mention of King's Disease being like kind of re-released, kind of right. But
Yep.
yeah, this is King's Disease 2. So like Nas, and even he brags as much in King's Disease 2. Like he's been at this shit for 30 years, and you can definitely kind of feel it and hear it in this record, for
Yes.
better and
Yeah,
worse.
exactly. Some of it is decent, and some of it can definitely feel Uncle Rappy. But I think that Nas is right now at his best when he has features. I think when he can go off the flows of a bunch of other people and whatnot within there and still have his solid production, still have his solid lyricism and his flow, I think that's when he's at his best. The weakest parts of this album to me are when he's by himself and it can get a little at nauseum within it, if it makes any sense. Because I really like the Lost Tapes 1, like when that came out in what 2000 or something, maybe, or around there in the early 2000s. I do enjoy that album a lot. And then the Lost Tapes 2 that came out last year, I thought was decent, but I think I had the same thing, and it's really proven to me with this record that now I'm like, okay, he really needs to have that little extra oomph, like a little extra pep in his step when he gets to have different flows and different works with other people, but doesn't construe from like he's still a good artist, but it just needs that little extra. It's kind of like how I had with Doom was the same way. I thought so as well.
Yeah, the Doom comparison is kind of to mind as well because these are both people who came out of like the same era, right? Obviously Doom's past
Yes.
now, but like Nas, I'll say in comparison to Doom, and maybe there's just like a feature of like Doom was always like very heavy into not just the rapping but also the production. Nas has been very easy to, and then also kind of segueing into the album review. Nas has been not had an issue with going into newer styles of production. So like you get into
Oh, for
40
sure.
side, for example, and this is a trap beat, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
if you're an old head, this isn't the first time Nas has been on a trap beat or even featured on a trap beat or anything by a long shot, right? So this isn't going to be a surprise. This is going to shock or scare anyone, but you are noticing very much that like this is someone who's been rapping for 30 years who's still kind of rapping like he did back in the day, and this is like a newer beat that requires not just like a little bit more of a speed, but the words you're using have to like keep with the rhythm as well. So you have to, if you really want to do trap well, and that's why Migos, even though they don't really use that much of words, they're just very, very rhythmic, and that works with
Mm-hmm.
trap music as a genre. You have to keep that rhythm as you're going with it, and then you get this like nexus where you're meeting rhythm and lyrics, like 21 Savage, for example, and then it's just like off to the park. Killer Mike, LP, they do this very well because they, and again, controlling their production a little bit with LP, do trap things and they do like hip hop things side to side, and they keep pace with it pretty well. Again, the production oftentimes is taking a little bit more of like a newer take on boom bap kind of thing. Nas
For
here
sure.
is going more trappy, but those are things to consider here when you have someone with a little bit older of a flow on some newer instrumentals. It works better than you would expect, but not as well as like some of the newer shit. So it still has a little bit of that like bet like wow, Uncle's really getting it. Like you're surprised,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like it's Uncle rap nonetheless.
exactly. Going into the music, you have the first three tracks: The Pressure, Death Row East, 40 Side, which I think are like good opening tracks to it. Like it's nothing crazy. I do like Death Row East. I think like the flow of that, I really like. It's like that combination of old school within almost a more kind of new school style, but you still kind of hear that it's like the Uncle Rappy ish sound. Um, going into EPMD2 with Eminem and EPMD, I thought it was actually a pretty good track. I like Eminem's flow, and I'm not even the biggest Eminem fan. I don't really like his stuff per se that much, but it's actually a pretty decent track within it because everybody flows off of each other pretty well. After that, you have Rare, which in between the two feature tracks, I thought it was actually a pretty decent track. It's funny where he's like, I'm in rare form, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But I really like the production of this song a lot.
Yeah, I
Um,
love the dun, 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 dun of the bass line. Like
exactly.
everyone knows, like a bass head super sucker for that. But it's a nice like modern boom bap kind of thing because you'll also notice the bass line sort of like evolves and adapts throughout the song. It's not like a consistent like copy one bar four times. Like it goes and it adapts. It has a flow to it. And Nas, like, he's not out of lyrics per se. It's just like you've heard of a lot of his lyrics, so we're very much used to it. But he's still like really like hitting his stride on some songs like Rare, on songs like Moments as well, kind of later on. It's just, yeah, we're trying to balance this with what we've got now. Like Nas could have really, I think, benefited from taking this from some of the newer people and doing a shorter album, like maybe doing 40 minutes or 35
100%.
minutes.
That's gonna be my biggest complaint is the length of this. I wish he would have made it a little bit shorter, had less tracks on it, and it would have gotten to the point a lot more within there. And within somebody who's had so much music out, I think you need to have that where it's concise and it stays within a realm that is like I wouldn't say hearable, if that makes sense, but something that is obtainable to everybody to where you can really get and dive into it and get a sense of what it is without it being too lengthy. Um, then you get like points that are going to be misconstrued or things that you're not going to pick up on it because there's so much substance in there that you're not going to get it all. Moving on, right after Rare, you have YKTV, which I think is the best track on this album, actually.
Hmm.
And I'm not a big fan of Boogie with the Hoodie or YG at all, especially YG. But this track is actually pretty decent, where you're mixing two completely different sounds, a new sound with old school. You have three different flows, and it all actually is pretty good together.
Yeah, that's worth adding. Worth noting. Um, I guess I can appreciate that. I was sort of just like, I guess on first listen, I was more into the idea that this record was going to be kind of like a Nas newish flip on old school kind of things. And so anything that fit outside of that mold for me listening to this record, I was a little bit averse to. And so I can appreciate it in isolation now that like you're mentioning that, which is like good, the cool thing about this podcast. But like definitely listening into it as this album, it feels like a weird thing out in it, right? And like maybe would have sat nicer as a single or maybe like earlier up in the album because it's a little bit
In
too
the
close to
context
the
of the
rest.
album, yeah, exactly. I can get that for sure. Where it's like in the context of an album, it's kind of awkward in it, but as a track alone, I really like it as a track, and I wish that more of this sound was kind of explored throughout the album. This
Yeah.
is again kind of to my point earlier where I said he really works best when he gets to work with different artists and different flows, different production ideas and sounds, and that's where I really like.
Yeah.
Getting to the rest of the album, it starts to get a little bit lengthy kind of after that. You have Story Run Moments, which are decent. You have Nobody with featuring Miss Lauryn Hill, which I thought was a pretty good track. But again, it slows down a little bit towards the end, and then that's when to me it really starts to drag on about
The
there.
songs are slower, the songs are longer as well.
Yes.
And like I was actually gonna say that in some ways I like some of the latter
Oh,
songs on the
I
album
like the
more,
latter songs
but I
for
think
sure.
the songs could have been shorter and you still would have gotten to like the point of the idea of it. And yeah, it sort of just like overstays its welcome a little bit, especially
Or
like
if
features are good. I like Nas is good at the end. It's like a really nice like closing track, even more than Rare. You get that like boasting kind of like rapper at their prime, but like he's kind of been at his prime for a very long time. Again, for better and for worse. So you've been getting really good, really
mhm.
consistent quality from him, but it's it's sort of like Logic almost actually, right? Like you're fine, you're consistent, like whatever, you've got like the talent to it, but like at a certain point, if you don't grow out of that, if you don't expand out of that like really really hard, then there's
What you
some
do?
artists who are able to like transcend that, and some artists transcend and like hit into a wall like Kanye West, and other artists like transcend and they're like really proving themselves to be like multi-talented in a lot of these different genres and things. And I'm not sure if that's like a comparable thing to Nas, like someone from the 90s necessarily doing this fully right. But definitely in the 2010s, you're seeing artists who are like, we mentioned Tyler the Creator in a totally different context earlier, but like you have that, you have Gambino, You have like a number of different Tame Impala, even a number of different artists who are really just jumping out of genres they're usually into, out into things that are into their comfort zone, and they're really really nice. So, um, out in music, it's out there, and Nas could be one of these, but he's staying in his own sort of comfort zone, doing what he does well, for better or worse.
Yes, agreed. Arbitrary scale this week is obscure Olympic sports. So this is going to be.
I'm
So
giving this. Go ahead.
I was gonna say this is dressage, one of the horse events.
I loved there was some coverage because in America they're really desperate to get people to give a shit about the Olympics. And so yeah, it was NBC is paying Kevin Hart and Snoop Dogg what I only assume are goo gobs amount of money to do like sports commentary for the Olympic events. And definitely Snoop Dogg was looking at dressage and said, "Oh shit, that horse is crip walking." Honestly, it was great, and I'm gonna send you their golf coverage afterwards. And like, I would watch the fuck out of golf if Snoop Dogg and noted Brokeback Mountain lover Kevin Hart were doing the announcing. I was even like enjoying Kevin Hart's commentary of it, to be real, together with Snoop Dogg on that with golf and everything. But yeah, it was really funny.
I mean, I've seen him do hockey a couple. He does that a lot because Snoop Dogg randomly is like a big ass hockey fan, and he's done stuff for the Kings and the past couple of years where he helped on games. The best one is he did the Penguins game maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, and that shit was hilarious. Absolutely loved it.
I was going to give my version as the modern pentathlon because I only heard about this very recently, and it is
oh, it's wild.
Yeah, it is fencing, show jumping, pistol shooting, so you get your pistol shooting, swimming, and running. I don't know, Sean. Looks like fun to me.
It looks like hella fun. I'm down.
Instead of swim, bike, run, you just do some fencing, some jumping jacks. It'll be great.
Jumping jacks, some pew pewing, and then I hop on and run.